Welcome to the BEwell. What is the BEwell? The BEwell journey is us trying to help others grow through our experience, life experience, our expertise that we know, in order to talk about topics like emotional intelligence, mindfulness, conflict management, all those kind of topics that are a bit difficult that we can help other people to grow. So today, that's what the BEwell journey is all about. Caroline is a dedicated expert in rat race recovery coaching. She'll tell us what that is later. Workplace wellness and business coaching, guiding individuals and businesses toward a life of flow, radiance, and authentic success. Okay, so through Carolina's expertise, we will explore how to integrate Tony Robbins' transformative methodologies into our daily lives and professional environments. So basically what we're trying to do is we've brought you along. We've asked you to be our guest speaker, co-host, Carolina. So you can tell us what is this approach by Tony Robbins? How did you come across that? How can that be helpful to other people? What can people expect to take away from a talk like this today? So
good questions, a lot of them. So what can people expect from today? Let's start with that. So I hope a lot of insights and a little bit of also an idea of what the methodology. I mean, the methodology of Tony Robbins is nothing new or groundbreaking, but it is something trial and error. Because Tony Robbins, I don't know, for the people that don't know who Tony Robbins is, Tony Robbins is a business coach, a life coach, and he coached NBA teams. He coached Oprah Winfrey. He coached presidents, and so he is big in the United States and worldwide. A lot of people know him. So he has coached many people. He organizes huge events, of which I'm often crew, and to help people get to the next level in their life and to break through certain beliefs that are holding them back, or certain habits, certain patterns, strategies, things that we do day to day that we don't even realize that we're doing because we're doing them on autopilot, but that can severely harm our reaching our goals, let's say.
So when people are on automatic pilot, Carolina, it's because they do it because they want to save energy. Because when we have a lot of things on automatic, it saves us energy, so we can do more or not. So now you're saying that is that good or is that bad, going on automatic pilot?
Well, it's actually not something that we have much control over, because if we would not do things on autopilot, our brain would melt down like an old computer. So it's not something we have control over. Our bodies, our systems, our minds, they are, neurologically speaking, they are made to be as efficient as possible and to use as little energy as possible, like you mentioned. And so that's actually a normal process. However, some of these things we do on autopilot come from habits from a long time ago, like habits from our childhood. We used to be shy because we used to, sit in the back at certain things because we didn't feel that we had the knowledge. And now we're still sitting in the back, even though we do have the knowledge, and we don't advocate for ourselves because we are still in the pattern of somebody that has shyness, but we're no longer shy. So how does that work? That energy saver, that autopilot, is now limiting us from stepping forward, advocating for ourselves, and showing people that we have a wonderful product or a wonderful service or a wonderful business, or that we are a wonderful person in case people are looking for a relationship. So that same shyness that was very useful when we were 5 years old is still that automatic pattern, that automatic strategy, and is now no longer serving us. So it's not, is it good or is it bad? It's good and it's bad. And everything in between those two. Some parts can be good, some can't be. So yeah, it's not really like there's a simple answer.
So how did the Tony Robbins Mastery training program shape your approach to coaching?
So I've been with Tony Robbins for a very long time. So I first did basically every program that he runs. And then I found that I was working a lot on my business, right? And I wanted to know more about the in-depth of how all these shifts that he generates, how that works. And so I went in this Robbins Medane's training program, where he teaches you all these methodologies that he uses on his clients so that you can replicate that with your. So how did it change? Well, in the beginning,
how did it shape your approach? I mean, did you follow him, copy and paste, or did you actually implement some of your strategies, personality, and so on into the approach?
Absolutely, yes, that last one. I have from what I did throughout the 15 years that I'm coaching now. At least once a year, I do a training, because I want to be up to date. I want to know the latest techniques. I also want to know the latest neuroscience research, let's say. So, and I'm doing that. And Tony Robbins, I think I've been with him from the very beginning, but I did this particular training about 7 years ago, let's say. And so I already had a lot of tools in my toolbox, and I already had a lot of things that I was using with my clients. How did it change? Well, he has some very, very profound, let's say slightly deeper tools. So there's these tools that you can explain. There's these strategies that you can follow. You can tell people, hey, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3. Tony Robbins has these methodologies that make you feel it in your body, make you feel it in your heart, not just know it intellectually. Does that make sense?
Well, let me answer that question. So we know when people say the 5-step method to the 10-step method to, is that the kind of stuff that you're talking about? It's very sort of packaged. It's like, I feel like, okay, if you get a 10-step training to better happiness or to the best version of yourself and so on. Is that how is that the Tony Robbins approach? Is that the way he presents his programs?
Well, it's exactly the opposite. It's like what can you take out from yourself to create your own 10 steps? It's based on, so I truly believe this, 80% of business and business success is in the mindset. It's in the way that you perceive the world, the way that you look at the world. If you look at the world as a dangerous place, you will see danger coming from every corner. And that's because we look through a certain lens, through glasses, and it's our worldview. It's the way we look at things. So if you can take those glasses and you can switch them for other types of glasses, that 10-step thing, which is so important, right? A 10-step program to have, for the business foundations is very useful. But your first step might not be my first. And the way you interpret step number 1 might not be the way that I interpret step number 1. First, because we don't have the same services. But second, also because we don't have the same personality. And in business, unless you put your products for a very small price on a very big website where things just sell, most of business is relationships. And so looking at the world, now again, with those glasses, for example, of the world is a dangerous place, then whatever comes to you and whatever connections come to you, you're going to look at that connections as that's a dangerous thing to engage in. Meaning you won't take any risks. So you will limit yourself in that sense because you're looking through certain glasses. Now, Tony Robbins' methodologies, what they do is they make you take off those glasses and examine them and say, hey, is this type of glasses, and I'm talking dangerous, but it could also be Successo. There's a lot of people that look to the world as, I cannot be successful because when I'm successful, I'm visible, and I cannot be visible. Oh, like I said previously, those automatic patterns that we got from when we were younger, we are still running them. And he makes you look at that glasses and say, is still the type of glasses I would like to look at the world with? And then with that, taking those off and thinking, okay, if that's not the way I would like to look at the world, then what is the way that I would like to look at the world? And then put all your 10-step processes and everything that you've learned in terms of more clinical tools in that perspective. That's what builds authenticity, because that's what makes it you.
So when someone comes to you with a business, because you're business coaching too, Carolina, it's your business coaching. So when someone comes to you with a business coaching project or an objective, do you look at the business objective, or do you start working on the person? I mean, because we're talking about the glasses, the Tony Robbins approach and so on. I mean, we're looking at the person, the mindset, because you said business success is in the mindset. So where do you focus?
I tend to there's a principle called the Triad principle, and I think practically every business person has heard of it. It's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the success of a business is in the top 20% of what you're doing. And so if people come to me with a certain business goal, people rarely come to me with, I have this goal and it's this clear, and it's so clear that I know exactly what to do, because then it's just this is where your goal is, this is where you are now, let's talk about how we're going to bridge the gap, right? Because that's basically what you do as a coach. This is where you are, this is where you want to go, let's see how we're going to get there. The thing is that most people do not come to me saying, this is my goal. And they have some sort of notion of where they want to go, but the goal isn't that clear. Now, what happens, especially in your system, in your brain, in your mind, when your goal isn't 100% clear, you start to move from one side to the other. And that's simply, it's not efficient and not effective. And especially when you have a team or employees, we've probably a lot of us have been there when you were working in a company, and then one day the management wanted that, and then the next day they seem to have wanted exactly the opposite, or maybe there's 3 months in between one of the two, but everybody moves into one direction, and then sorry, we have to redirect. Now we're going in the that way. It's a huge waste of energy and a huge waste of time. So usually what I do with people that come to me with a business goal, we basically move into specifics. What is it that you actually want? And how do you want it to fit your life? Because especially as entrepreneurs, a business needs to be molded around the life that you want. You don't need to mold around your business. That's, in my opinion, and that's the wrong way around.
But running a business, Carolina, I've run my business for 25 years. And so I've got some experience of being, starting off on my own as just me and another person, and then growing the business up to 30 people and et cetera, et cetera. Couple of points there. I mean, as an entrepreneur, one is, I agree with you. If you have your map very clear, you know where you're going, you're not going to waste time, you're not going to waste energy, you're not going to waste money, and so on. Business is especially today, business has to be very lean, very flexible, very agile. And, trends are up and down, like what's happening in Japan is affecting you in Europe and so on. So 6 months, 1 year plans seems to be too long. It used to be the 10-year plan, but with a 5-year plan, now even a 1-year plan is too long. And so the question is, someone listening to you here, an entrepreneur, what are they thinking here? Because they're having to actually be very agile, moving with the markets, moving with the trends, moving with different types of employees as well, with the diversity. There's a lot of the people, the populations are just moving around everywhere. What do you say to these people who are finding themselves having to be agile and move quite often?
I start with the why. So what you are describing right now, that flexibility, that's the how. That's how were you going to go from one point to another. But for each and every one of us, we do have like this ultimate vision. And it sounds like you are, which makes sense, you are translating this into a plan, but it's not a plan that you're looking for. You're looking for a vision. You're looking for where do I want to go? Where do I truly want to end up? Then you can take steps towards it. And those steps can be translated. Tony does this as well. Basically map out where do I want to be, because we underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And so we need to figure out, if we know what we want in 10 years from now, we can set our mind to it. It's not so much we can take this first step and you can then translate it, of course. What do I want in 5 years? What do I want in 1 year? What does that mean for me in a month from now? If you want to run, a €1 million business, then in a year from now, you know what you need to do today. And it's a completely different step than when you want to run a €10 million business in a year. So I would say first figure out why you want that goal and what that goal actually means to you. And then you can go back step by step until you reach the point where you say, okay, then this is the small little step that I need to take tomorrow. And this is the small step that I need to take in a week. And then that accumulates to a month. The worst thing as an entrepreneur, I think, is that you get into this paralysis. I'm sure there's a word for it, but the paralysis that you don't take decisions because you're afraid that you're going to make the wrong decision. And it doesn't, for me personally, and I'm not sure how it is for you, but my worst moments in my business were always moments where I was indecisive. Were always the moments when I did not take the decision and I let it drag out. And then either at some point the decision is made for you, right? For example, with people that don't fit your company, you drag out that conversation with them. And then at some point things escalate one way or the other. The person either leaves or something happens and that you could have prevented. So the worst thing is to not take a decision, to not take that action. And that's, I think, is where a lot of people are stuck. A lot of entrepreneurs are stuck.
What about these entrepreneurs that have to, because obviously there's a lot of information that can't be divulged, it can't be spread with everyone in the office. So there are strategies and there are like strategic planning and all this kind of things. And so when the entrepreneur actually takes the company in one direction and people who are following him are saying, why are we changing direction? We were going there 3 months ago, now we're going there, and so on. What happens there with the entrepreneur? Is he sort of, is he lost control? Is he looking for the right way to get to the objective? What happens there?
If I understand your question correctly, is when people finally do set that goal and they figured out that their previous goal wasn't that the actions that they were taking weren't actually getting them there. then I think that's very explainable. When you have that, it's explainable for your team. In my opinion, authenticity is also saying, hey guys, sorry, I made a mistake. I led us in the wrong direction and I recalibrated. I have gotten myself, I don't know, I've gotten myself some clarity and a coach. And this is my vision for the future. This is where I want everybody to go, because there's nothing so inspiring as a leader that truly has a vision of not a year plan, but a vision of where to go. So people will follow. And in that enthusiasm and in that clarity and being able to communicate that what it is that you truly want to reach for everyone in the company, right? Because if you're doing well, they are doing well. And so looking at that from that perspective, they will follow. Of course, don't set another direction 3 months later, because then it becomes that same thing of going back and forth, and people will lose their direction. I mean, a leader is there. It's called a leader for a reason, right? You're supposed to lead by example, and whatever behavior you display, including the authenticity of saying, hey, sorry, we're gonna redirect because I now see that there are certain things that this part has that this part doesn't, and I think we're going to be more successful here, including that authenticity. If you show that authenticity, you're going to get that authenticity back. There's always going to be people in your company that will not be able to step up with you, and that's okay. Whenever you grow on whichever growth you go through, there's always people that maybe are staying behind, and that's okay. As long as you can see that and accept that and won't feel guilty about that.
You know, the role of an entrepreneur, Carolina, is like, you're trying to play all the cards, you're trying to keep the balance. You're trying to get the group to go to the objectives. You want people on board. You're trying to delegate. You're trying to get them to you. So everyone has a share, all the stakeholders are actually taking part in the project towards the goal. It's being an entrepreneur is not it's something I think it's inside of you. It's like, you can get better with your different skills and your communication, so on, but it's the risk taking. It's things that are inside of you. And sometimes, many a time I ask, what am I doing this for? What's this all about? It's not about the money. It's not about the glory, but you find yourself, you're there, and you have to go ahead, and because that's the way it is. I mean, you're the entrepreneur. So let's ask a question about the rat race. You're a rat race recovery coach. Rat race. Tell us a little bit about that. What are we talking about? The rat race recovery coaching.
The term rat race comes from a research that was done with rats, where they made the rats sniff the cheese, then they put the cheese all the way outside of the maze, and they let the rats run through the maze. And the first time the rat would find a cheese and all happy, and the second time as well, and the third time there would not be a cheese. And the rats kept running anyway. And as long as they smelled, some of the rats ran themselves to death, finding this cheese that wasn't even in the maze. Now, if we look at our lives today and a lot of corporate lives today, there's a lot of rat racing. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of putting your personal life on the back burner. It's a lot of all that for a reward that may never come, that may never be there. There's a lot of in this for, I have this promotion, maybe, yes, along with 15 of your peers. So why are you running so hard? And why are you prioritizing this particular piece over everything else in your life now? And that's the rat race. We are so conditioned to think that that success is that piece of cheese that may not be there, that even if we have all the odds against us, and even if we know that that piece of cheese is not in the maze, we still keep running. And so rat race recovery, you know how you can, whenever you have been in a relationship, for example, that you stayed in there a bit too long, let's say, whether it's a personal relationship or a business relationship or a corporate relationship, like workplace relationship, you know how you can leave something like physically, you can leave a certain situation physically, but for the months after that, you still need to recover mentally and emotionally, and in every other sense of the word. You've left that place, especially if it's a toxic work environment, you left that place, but there's a lot of recovery that still happens afterwards. If we don't recover from that, what happens is that we start running the same pattern. And so we get to a new workplace, or we start a new business in some cases. Funny enough, the same patterns repeat again and again and again. That's you, in all honesty. That's 100% the person that allows those situations to happen again. Now, not on purpose, don't get me wrong. This is not a conscious, yay, let me go from one toxic environment into the next toxic environment. But we start these new jobs saying, this is a completely different workplace. And then 3-4 months later, the peers are treating us the same way. There is again somebody that is making weird remarks, and we find ourselves in exactly the same toxic situation as we had before. We can change that. That pattern can be broken, but it does require you to not only physically remove yourself from that situation, but also recover from it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
You were saying about running after the cheese. We train ourselves. We go to university, we get lots of certificates, a lot of courses we train ourselves to run for the cheese. So you become a professional, and you're there, you're whatever you are, you're a specialist, and you go there. The question is, how can we get away from what you were saying before about running and there is no cheese? It's just that we're just burning ourselves out. Is that what really happens? Or people actually, each one of us has an objective, whether it's a position, whether it's salary, a recognition, and each one goes for, that's what their goal is, and that's what they do. How can they find the right balance to not get burnt out or not go down that rat race you were talking about?
Let me say this. First, I think it's a luxury problem, because you don't have to do this. You get to do this. I mean, if you have a position in a company where you can say, this is the salary I'm going to strive for, this is the position that I would like to have, amazing. You got to a point where you get to say that. And that in itself is pretty good. Besides from that, I think a lot of it is generational. So we are given certain tools out of love, honestly, out of love. We are given certain tools that might not serve us. I mean, at least my generation comes from parents that were in a more directive type of corporate organization, let's say. You were told what to do and you executed. Unless you were the boss, then you were telling what to do and people executed. And right. There was no conversation about your tasks. There was no, this is what you're going to do. That's the goal. And if you do it well, then there's no salary raise. That's just the way it was. And so for our parents to survive that environment and for them to thrive in that environment, they needed to make certain choices. Now, every generation is there to improve on the last generation, right? Evolution means that we need to improve on our parents. And so they have given us certain tools. They have given us a certain mindset. And one of those things of that generation is you have to work hard for your money. And the whole smart working, that wasn't even a thing. So having to work hard, a lot of people, I have, for example, a client who, when he started with me, he got a couple of promotions. And every promotion, of course, came with more cash flow, which was amazing. But what did he do to compensate for that generational belief of you have to work hard for money? Every time he got a little bit more money, he started working harder. And so the more he got promoted, the more hours he started to work. And at some point, he was working himself half to death. Well, that wasn't why he wasn't supposed to do more hours. The reason he got those promotions was because of his knowledge, because of his insights, because of the things, the way that he would see patterns and see flows through the company that other people couldn't. People didn't expect him to work harder and even told him many times, don't. Yet he couldn't. There was like this inner conflict with him where he brought that generational pattern with him that he was taught. And I think our educational system is a little bit like that as well. We are taught certain patterns, and we are taught, for example, that if you have higher grades, you will be more rewarded. That's still the case. For my generation, if I wanted to be in corporate, was. If I want to be a doctor, yes. But if I want to start a company in AI, I don't need my grades for that. So what part of that comes from how we are taught, and what part of that comes from patterns that we have been running since very young that we're still running?
Yeah, definitely. I think the beliefs as well. I think myself, when I had some success, I thought it was too easy. I said that was it. It was too easy because that success was bringing in cash flow, expanding the business, getting a bit of recognition. And I felt like my parents had to really work to get this money, really had to work. So, I didn't sort of give myself credit for having the vision or the insights or the connections to actually get that business. Let's talk a little bit about success. I mean, authentic success. You were talking about authentic. What does that mean? What do you mean by authentic success? What does that mean to you?
For me, it means that for me personally, authentic success means that I'm true to my values, but also that at the end of my business life, for example, the business that I now run, let's say I do what I did with the previous one, I sell it. And then at the end of that business life, I want to be able to say to myself, I have no regrets. I did everything I wanted to do, and I didn't let the fear of success or the fear of failure stop me from stepping forward and stop me from from doing everything that I thought was good, and that didn't stop me from contributing, and it didn't stop me from speaking my truth.
So are there regrets, Carolina, or are they just attempts? I mean, are there regrets, or every action is necessary and there is a purpose to even failing or to taking the wrong road, or not? What's your thoughts on that?
So I believe no, there are no regrets. However, there are some things that you cannot turn around. Regrets is not per se not taking that opportunity, but there could be regrets in not contributing with your highest intention. So not giving it your all. I'm not sure if you have the feeling that you're not giving it your all and it keeps you up at night, then that would be a regret I would have afterwards. Yes. Although if you want to call it, it could also be a learning. So in my case, the moment but yeah, that's the nature of a coach, I think. When I feel like a regret is creeping up, I immediately grab it, and it's like, oh wait, this is because I don't have many. This is something that I need to look at, and this is something that I need to do something about, because apparently something here is not in line with my values or with the things I truly want to do or with my ultimate vision, right? So I tend to grab those quite fast. However, I realize that not everybody has the tools that I have, has had the education that I have, has had to go through all the self-reflection that I went through, right, to become a coach and to stay on top of my game. So I do think there's a lot of people that feel they have regrets, and that's usually because they didn't take action before it went too far. And so there's always this, I could have, I should have, I needed to do, or maybe if I just would have done. And those I do consider regrets. And I can say that at the end of my life, I want to keep the regrets that I have, which is like a handful, maybe, because I had them since some of them are since childhood, some of them are from an investment that I made that I completely lost. And I think, oh, if I would have only done my research, which I didn't back then, it was a big learning. That was a big learning.
It's always a learn.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think
regret ever learning?
Regret, I mean, maybe not taking an opportunity, or regret is maybe letting something go quicker than you could have. You should have maybe held on to it a little bit longer, or maybe that relationship had to be worked a little bit longer. Or maybe you could have given a little bit of more of yourself into that, and perhaps that's regret. But personally, I think the regrets, I mean, you do in that moment, whenever that moment was, you did your best. You did what you thought was the right thing to do. And now you look back, and from here, you look back and it's easy to look from here and say, okay, I regret that. But at that moment, you didn't have the awareness, or you didn't have the tools or mind tools or whatever that was necessary for you to make the right decision that you could make today. Let's go on to another one. Talking about the triad of Tony Robbins, body, focus, and meaning. Body, focus, and meaning. How does that impact us? Body, focus, meaning.
So those three, it's a triad of the state of being. Whichever state you are in, whether it's a panicky state, a happy state, an excited state, an anxious state, every state that we are in Tony's perspective, is a choice. And I tend to agree with him, although we don't always have the power in ourselves, like
Say that again, Carolina. So in every state we are in, it's a choice that we've made to be in that state. Is that what you're saying? If someone's in a state of sadness, you're saying that they've chosen to be in that state?
Yes. And I will tell you how that is. So we have a thing called, let's talk about sadness. Sadness can be primary and secondary. And primary sadness comes up super fast. It's cried out and then it's done. Now it's like a 1 minute thing. That's primary emotion. We can have that multiple times a day. Don't get me wrong. If something really, really bad happens, then we have multiple 1 minute moments a day. But staying in that sadness is a choice. And staying in the suffering is a choice. Pain is unavoidable, but suffering is always a choice. And we choose that by letting our monkey mind control our thinking, instead of saying, no, I'm in control. I am my own leader, and I'm in control of that voice. So when it comes up and we stay in that state of mind, according to that triad, we do three things. First, we use our body in a specific way. And our body, so these three work very closely together. It's a triangle with these three components. And if you change one of these components, you basically change 1/3 of your state of being. So let's continue on sadness. If you step into an elevator and there's a person, just one person standing, you can immediately see and feel how that person is. Nobody can hide it that well. If you would look at them, you can immediately, that person seems to be sad, or that person seems to be excited. Or so that's because we use our body in a certain way. If you look at sad people usually they hold their head slightly bended down, they look to the floor, they have their shoulders hunched, they have a certain type of breath and a certain heartbeat. Now, not all of that is perceivable by the eye, but you can feel it. You can feel when people are in that state. And if you cannot see it, you can feel it. And so when we when we do this, the memory of having this body posture, that's a memory, and that's one third of that triad. If you change your body posture, if you change the way you stand, you will instantly feel different. And so that's why Superman pose. I'm not sure if people heard of that. There's this pose where you say, okay, I want to be empowered. And right before I go on stage, I always do that actually. It's the Wonder Woman or the Superman pose, where you put your arms on your side and you look up and you straighten your spine. And it actually has that physical posture. If you hold on it, and there's all kinds of research about this posture.
Yeah.
If you hold on to that for long enough, your brain will start, they checked on that and research, your brain highlights different parts of your brain. So the way you use your body has an effect on your emotional state and on your state of being mental. Now, then let's have the focus.
Yeah,
so if you are sad, there are certain thoughts that go through your head, and you have a certain focus. So when you're sad, you cannot think, yesterday was such a fantastic night, and be sad at the same time about that same night. There's certain thoughts that go through your head where your focus is on. I didn't do this well, or I didn't do that well, or I don't know, whatever you said you should have done different, or other people should have done different. Or sometimes we blame somebody in that situation. It could be we blame the universe for something that happened. But the focus is on exactly that. What went wrong, not what went right. On what we think, what we miss, not what we gained. And so that focus piece is the second part of the triad. And then there's a third piece that we put meaning onto it. So you can notice something. It's actually what you did just now. In just a minute or so ago. When you put your focus on, when you put meaning onto whatever you're focused on, you can make it worse or you can make it better, or you can just keep it neutral. And if you attach, for example, if you're in traffic is an amazing example, because you can see what people give as a meaning to a traffic jam. If you look in a traffic jam, there's always all different types of people, and everybody handles the traffic jam differently. Some people will get off and think, oh, that person has a traffic accident. That's so horrible, and they get sad. Some people think, oh, I don't have to go to that horrible meeting. They get the newspaper and they sit and they read the newspaper. Thank you. Finally, some time for myself. And then there's people that try to zigzag, even though the traffic is stopped. They try to zigzag from one lane to the other because they're stressed, because they have a meeting and now my boss is going to be angry with me, and they're stressed. And then there's people that get angry. All these people are in exactly the same traffic jam, but they all give a different meaning to it, and their focus is all on a different moment. So people that at that moment they are in the traffic jam and they think, okay, I'm here, I'm safe, I'm in my car, I'm warm, nothing is threatening my life at the moment, I'm good. They don't get stressed. All the others get stressed and somehow get into a certain emotional state, in a different state, because of the same traffic jam. And they all give a different meaning to it. And their focus is with the guy that is stressed, it's at like a week from now, my boss is going to fire me, right? The person that is sad is probably with their mind in a personal experience saying, oh, that traffic, that must be so horrible for that person. They're in a personal experience because they know how it feels to have that type of sadness. So each and every one of them has their focus on a different moment in time, but none of them are present in exactly that moment. So that's the meaning. And so if you put those three together, changing and being aware, right? Every change happens only once you are aware of sort of the baseline. You cannot change something that you don't know. You cannot change something that you can't see or don't want to see. So if you look at that entire triad and the state we are in after our primary emotion is secondary. And it's a choice, because you can change your state, you can change your focus, and you can change the meaning. You can make it not better or worse. You can just make it what it is.
So we don't make that choice because we're just wrapped in our monkey chatter, monkey brain, and we give, I suppose, more focus to that rather than what we really want. As we're coming to the end, Carolina, there's a point here about priming the day. Priming the day. Tell us a bit what is
about
that?
the monkey mind, exactly. So monkey mind control basically is priming your day. Priming your day, if you start your day with a small win, and so for some people, a small win can be making their bed, small win, and you celebrate the win, you're basically priming your day. Now, my priming routine is pretty long. I take about an hour and a half for my priming routine every day, but it's the same.
Priming, the word priming is preparing,
yes,
preparing the day.
Yeah, sort of. So it's like when you paint something, you also want to have a primer so that the paint sticks, basically. And so it's the start of your day. It's doing a routine that sets you up for success. And so every person has their own way of setting themselves up for success. But there's habits and patterns and strategies that contribute, and there's ones that do not. Now, we all have a mobile phone, and we all practically know that that's not the best way to start a day, because you go outwards, you look at your phone, and even if you immediately get input, so your monkey mind immediately starts to, I should do this and I should do that. People that open their calendar, I love when people come to me, open it and stuff. I ask them, what's the first thing you do in the morning? Well, I get my phone, I open my calendar. And I think, and I tell them, so you wonder why you get stressed. I can tell you why you get stressed. It's because you're priming your day with a calendar with all these items that you need to do. And so you immediately get into that, oh, I need to, and you immediately have this, I'm short on time. And so you prime your day with, I'm short on time. And that is going to go through, you're going to take that with you through your entire day. Well, if you would in reality look at that in more detail and would write things down about it, it would probably not be that bad. You would be able to delegate things, you would be able to move things there would be things that would not have any significant meaning, that are not in that 20% that actually make the difference, but are in the 80% that we do to keep busy. So yes, priming your day.
So I mean, Carolina, we're looking in the morning. A lot of people looking for an easy fix. They're looking for a bit of a dopamine, a hit. They pick the telephone up, they look at the Facebook, they look at the Instagram, they're looking at messages, rather than sitting down in silence and meditating and doing a journaling or whatever. People are looking for the quick, the pleasure. And you can imagine that. So what can we tell people like that? I mean, the people who get up and they pick their phone up. I mean, I do too, but I don't go into my email. I look, and the telephone's right next to my bed, so it's my alarm. I pick that up, I put it in my pocket, and it has happened to me. My children have sent me a message the night before, and I haven't seen it, obviously, because I've walked the dog, and 2 hours later, I look at the message, and I say, well, it's too late now, because what I was supposed to do was, I should have done before, but it's too late now. So again, there's the pros and the cons of all of this, or not. I mean, how connected should we be to these devices, to these, how on call should we be? Because that's what it's all about, being on call.
Our need behind picking up that phone is for everybody has a different need for picking up their phone. There's 6 in the school of Tony Robbins, there's 6 human needs. And each and every person has a different need, one of those 6 that is highest to pick up their phone. Now, most people are in a love and connection need. Each and every one of us has it up to a certain extent, all the 6. But love and connection love is something that we all crave. And so very often we pick up that phone out of the need to connect. And I would challenge people and say, well, what is it that you can connect with around you? And how can you connect with yourself so that that connection with the outside world, the world outside of your house, the world outside of your bedroom, outside of your family, outside of yourself, becomes a little bit more balanced with the world that is around you, and that you don't need your phone.
Yeah, definitely. I think I know where you're coming from. In the morning, I had to put my habits into place as an entrepreneur, and I read the book by Robin Sharma, The 5 a.m. Club. I don't know if you've ever read that, called The 5 a.m. Club. And it was it was a boot camp. It was waking up at 5 in the morning and actually getting your habits in line. And it was 20 minutes of exercise, 20 minutes of meditation, 20 minutes of reading, sitting in silence, 20 minutes of reading something to actually stimulate your brain. All of this, it was like, and I did it. And for me, it was a big challenge. especially waking up in the winter when it was cold. But the book's really interesting. It's called The 5 a.m. Club. It's for people.
What's the reason for the 5 a.m.? Why can't it be 7 or 8 a.m.?
It was 5 a.m. because you know the people are not, you're not disturbed by messages or by people phoning you or anything around you at that time in the morning. But some people, you know, they prefer to do the 2 p.m. club, but he chose the 5 a.m. club, and it worked for me actually. I mean, I did that for about a good 6 months, getting up and everything like that, getting myself organized, having everything right next to me, so there were no excuses. I knew, and I had to go and do 20 minutes of exercise, 20 minutes of silence, and 20 minutes of learning something new every day. And those were the habits I had to change. So, you know, not waking up at 7 like a zombie and then just getting dressed and getting into the traffic and then getting angry with everyone and getting to the office at 8:30 and then people not even speaking to me because they'd seen me that I was, you know, I'd come in the wrong way. Like, I know he said, he's had a bad night, don't talk to him. And so what was happening, you know, you were being isolated as a leader, as an entrepreneur, because people didn't want to come into your space because they could see already from your body language, what you were saying before, that, you know, you're not open to any discussions this morning. So let's not talk to him. So again, there was a lot of signs that the entrepreneur, I think, as an entrepreneur, I wasn't aware of. It was only when I actually started the coaching journey, the life coaching, business coaching, all those different programs that I followed, that I actually understood what was happening around me, because I was so focused on myself. And then I understood why people wouldn't talk to me. And I would think, but why didn't you tell me this? Because we saw that you were coming in the office and it didn't look like a good morning, so we didn't tell you. And so there were a lot of those heart sort of opening moments to actually say, okay, you got to get yourself together. And so that was the journey I took on, and that led to where we are today with the BEwell as well. So listen, we're coming to the end. Carolina. Listen, thank you very much for your time, for all these insights. I hope whoever watches this video, whoever takes some of these nuggets away, they actually implement it. Maybe they can contact you. Can they? Where would someone find you if they were looking for you?
Somebody can find me on LinkedIn. Carolina Bakker, like my, if you type in Google, if you type in rat race recovery, you automatically end up on my website usually. But my website is coachingbycarolina.com.
Okay.
And I would love to hear from people also about the episode and what they agree with, what they disagree with. I love that.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're here to help other people move forward, improve their performance, whether it's in life or whether it's at work. So some of these strategies, some of these insights could be really helpful. What about if someone wants you to go a little bit deeper, apart from contacting you and maybe doing a coaching session or some of your courses? What are there any books, any podcasts, anything that you would recommend that someone could actually go in, learn a little bit more about the rat race recovery coaching, or maybe the Tony Robbins mastery program? Could you give us some?
Yes. So actually, Tony Robbins has multiple times a year. He has an event called Unleash the Power Within. I can really recommend that. That's a wonderful baseline to start your thinking process on how to reorganize these types of things and how to take off those glasses that we talked about in the beginning and put on different ones. It's amazing. So of course, if on my website, there is several tools and free stuff. There's an imposter syndrome, free imposter syndrome conquering training that people can download. And for books, so I read a book a week, and I'm currently, I would recommend one, but it's in Dutch. But for
you read what you
Yes, I love. It was one of my goals that I set myself last year to read a book a week, and I read 45 in total because there was one in there that was really light and hard to get through. And this year I've set myself the same goal because I love to read it. Yeah.
A book could be Awaken the Giant in You or something. Is that one?
Awaken the Giant Within, Unlimited Power, and I think I have it there behind
There you
me.
are. Okay, so that's a recommendation.
Unlimited Power of Tony Robbins. Absolutely.
Awaken the Giant Within.
Yes, and I love a book called First Break All the Rules from Gallup, and it's amazing for leadership and people running a company. So yeah.
Brilliant. Carol, thank you very much for your time, for your insights, for all your coaching.
And
people
thank you so much for having me.
They're going to get in contact with you. Going to look into that book, Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. And hopefully our paths will cross again sometime, whether it's through BEwell or through one of your coaching programs. So thank you again. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.